Hello everyone and welcome. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how to build a dedicated server for Satisfactory, and we're going to be building this on a Debian 11 box. Now this video is going to be a little bit different than what I typically post on this channel, but since dedicated servers were just released for Satisfactory with Update 5, and holidays are right around the corner, I'm planning on doing quite a bit of new factory building with some friends and family. So I figured it was about time to build a dedicated server and get ready for endless hours of playing over the holidays. So today in this video, we're going to walk through just a quick tutorial on how to stand up a new dedicated server for Steam and Satisfactory on a Debian Linux box. Now, as a quick disclaimer, this video is only going to cover how to install and set up the dedicated server software on a Linux machine. We will not cover installing Linux, nor any of the port forwarding or any of that type of stuff, because those both could be videos upon videos of themselves. So we will just be focusing today on installing the server software itself. So as you can see on the screen right now, I do have the Satisfactory page up for dedicated servers. We'll pretty much be walking through this step by step, so I will post a link to this in the video description for you to reference. There are some additional things that we'll have to do that aren't referenced on this page, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I will go ahead and bring up my Linux terminal for my Satisfactory machine that I built. We'll check which version we are running. And sure enough, right now I am running Debian version 11.1. Now, since this is a brand new install of Debian, by default, the system is going to select DHCP for its IP addressing. And so if we check the current IP address with the IP adder command, it looks like our current address is 10.122.2.83. Now, unfortunately, that is a dynamic and DHCP address, and we're going to want our dedicated server to have a static address. So we'll go ahead and use nano to open the network interfaces file. And you will have to use sudo because this is a restricted file, so we'll have to elevate our permissions to be able to write changes to it, and we'll be prompted for our password. So once we're in this file, we're going to do a couple of quick things. As we can see towards the bottom, it looks like interface ENS192 is going to be our primary network port. And we could have also seen that in the IP address output before when we were looking at what our current dynamic IP address is. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and scroll down to this line down here where it says iFace ENS192 iNet DHCP, and we'll change that to static. We'll also include a line right above that just says auto ENS192. And now below, we're going to go ahead and add our interface configuration. So I'll go ahead and put address, and then I'm going to make this 10.122.2.21, and we'll have to add a network mask. In my case, it's going to be 255.255.255.0. Then we'll add our gateway, in my case, 10.122.2.254. And last but not least, we will have to set our DNS servers. Okay, now that config looks good, so let's go ahead and hit Control-X to save our file. We'll be prompted to save, and we'll hit yes and overwrite this file. Next, we will need to restart the networking service for those changes to take effect. So we'll do sudo system control restart networking.service. Now, since we are currently connected to that .83 address and we just changed the address to .21, when we restart that networking service, we are going to get disconnected. So we'll go ahead and start a new session and reconnect to our server. So we should be able to log into that 2.21 address. Okay, and now once we're logged back in, again, we can also double check by using that IP address command. And sure enough, we can see that our IP address is now 10.122.2.21, and that is a static address, so it should not change. So we can always connect to this when we're connecting to our server. Next, we're going to go ahead and add a new user for Steam to run under. So we'll do sudo user add -m steam. And again, we'll enter our password real quick. All right, once we have that, we need to go ahead and install the Steam command line interface. And we can do that using Debian's package manager, but by default, Debian doesn't actually have that package included. So first, we'll just have to go ahead and add a new software repository that Debian can scan and find those packages for installation. So we'll go ahead and edit our apt sources. So we'll go ahead and scroll all the way down to the bottom here, and similar to all of the other entries that you can see on the screen right now, we're going to go ahead and add 2 quick lines to this file that will be the third-party repositories where we'll pull down the Steam command line utilities. And once we have those added in, we'll go ahead and save the file again. Now, once we've added those repositories, before we can actually install the utility, we will have to make sure that our package list on the system has been updated from that repository. So we'll go ahead and do a sudo apt-get update. Okay, now we can definitely see that lines 5 through 9, that we're pulling the new images and package lists from the Linode repository. One more thing before we install the Steam command line utility, we will need to add the i386 architecture into our package manager. Okay, once we do that, we can go ahead and run our apt-get update one more time, pull down a couple of additional package repositories, and once we have that, we can finally do the apt-get install Steamcmd, and we'll go ahead and say, yes, we do want to install all of these. Short way through the process, we will be prompted to accept the Steam user agreement, so we'll go ahead and hit OK first. And then, yes, I agree. Okay, once all of that is done, we have the Steam command line utilities installed. So let's go ahead and switch over to the Steam user real quick. First, I'll go ahead and clear out my screen, and then we'll just do a sudo switch user to Steam. We'll go ahead and move to the account's home directory. And right now, we don't have anything in our directories. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create a shortcut for the Steam command executable. And we'll do this with ln-s user games Steam command. And so now if we check our directory, we have a link to that Steam command here. And so copying straight from the Satisfactory wiki install page for dedicated servers, we'll go ahead and run Steam command. And we'll do force install dir to change the installation directory. And we'll go ahead and set that to this user's home directory /satisfactory. And then we'll go ahead and set login to anonymous. This is for connecting to the Steam cloud rather than logging in with an individual Steam user account. We're just going to go ahead and log in anonymously because we just need the server software. And we'll set the app update parameter and validate plus quit. Now, I'll call out here before we run this real quick. If you wanted to download the experimental branch, the other thing we would need to do is about here, we'll include the line -beta and experimental. I probably misspelled that. But since I'm going to go ahead and download the stable branch, I will go ahead and remove that and we'll run the command as is. Once we run this, this is going to go reach out to the Steam cloud and pull down the Satisfactory dedicated server software and copy it to that Satisfactory directory that we asked it to create. So while this is downloading the Satisfactory server, I guess now is a good time for a quick break. So I just wanted to say hello and welcome to anyone who's finding this channel because you are searching for Satisfactory content. This isn't the typical type of video that I do, but if you find value out of this video and it's helpful to you, if you're able to like and or subscribe to the video, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, and after a couple of seconds, it looks like Satisfactory has been successfully downloaded and installed. We can validate this by first checking the contents of our home directory. Sure enough, we now have a Steam folder and a Satisfactory folder. So let's go ahead and change directory into the Satisfactory folder. And if we look at the contents here, we do have all of the game files. Now, if we just wanted to run the server as a one-off and not something that's persistently available, we could just do a /factoryserver.sh. And so what that'll do is it'll start the game immediately and it'll start it as a foreground service. So if we close our window right now, it'll actually kill that service and the game will stop running. But if you wanted to just one-off run this to test, that's the way you're going to do it. Likely what you're going to want to do is have the server on all the time. And for that, we'll need to install the Satisfactory server as a background service within our Linux server. So let's go ahead and press Control-C to go ahead and kill the server and ask it to stop. And then let's take a look at how we can create a Linux service for this. So I brought up the Satisfactory wiki page for creating a Linux dedicated service. And we're going to go ahead and place a file in this systemd/system satisfactory.service. And here's the contents of what that service definition is going to look like. So this looks pretty straightforward, but we will need to make a couple of minor changes to this file before we install our service. So let's go ahead and copy this out. And I'll open up a notepad file and we'll go ahead and paste this in here. So the first thing that we're going to need to change is anywhere where it says your_user, we will need to set this to the user that we created to run Satisfactory, which is going to be Steam. So we'll go ahead and edit these. Got one in the exec start, one up here in the exec start pre, and one down in the working directory. And then we also need to set the user and group both to Steam as well. Okay, looks good. The only other thing I will mention here is that since we installed our game to home Steam Satisfactory, that's good. If you installed the game into any other directory, you will need to change that file location as well. So now that we have this done, let's go ahead and select all of it and copy it. We'll run back over to our Linux terminal real quick. Okay, back on our Linux terminal, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and exit out of the Steam user, because we no longer need it now that we've tested the Satisfactory server. Now back on my user account, we'll go ahead and create that new service file that the Satisfactory wiki had mentioned. So we'll go ahead and do a nano for systemd system satisfactory.service. In this file, we'll just go ahead and right click to paste the contents of our clipboard. And as long as that looks good, we'll do a Control-X again to go ahead and save this file. Now that we have that service file defined, we can enable it by doing a system control enable satisfactory.service. And that will go ahead and register that service in the system so that it knows now it's a valid service. And anytime this server reboots, it will go ahead and make sure to start that service upon the system coming back online. And last but not least, we're free now to start our Satisfactory service so we can run the game in the background and go ahead and connect and try and test it out. So we'll do that again with sudo system control start satisfactory.service. And after a quick second, that service should start in the background. And we can validate this by using the system control status satisfactory.service. And so if there were any issues in getting the server up and running, it would show here, but instead we do see that the process is currently active running. And so we should be free to go ahead and open up the Satisfactory game itself and connect to our server. So let's go ahead and jump over to the game and give it a shot. Once the game starts up, we do have on our left side a new option for Server Manager. We'll go ahead and click that. Down at the bottom, we'll click Add Server. And we'll go ahead and put in the address of our dedicated server. In my case, 10.122.2.21. And we'll hit confirm and give the game a second to go ahead and connect to that server. So as the first person to connect to the server, we get to go ahead and configure the server and become the administrator for it. So first we'll enter a name for our server. So we'll go ahead and put 0x2142-satisfactory. Once we're good with that, we'll go ahead and hit confirm. And we can set an admin password. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And we'll click confirm. So now it looks like our server is online. It shows that it's currently idle. We are the administrator. We can also see the current ping time to that server, which should be pretty close since the actual dedicated server is sitting right next to me. So before we create a game, if there are any other settings that we want to change around, we can hit the server settings. We can change the name, set a session name. We can change our admin password if we want. We can also add a player password protection. So this is going to be if you want to keep people from joining your game without having a password. This is where you'd set it here, and then you'd give that password to your friends who want to play with you. A couple of settings down here that are interesting to know about. One is going to be to save the game anytime when someone disconnects. I'm going to go ahead and leave that on because that is something that I want. The other one is whether or not to pause the game when no players are connected. Now this is an interesting one because on one side, you're going to save resources by your machine not running quite as hard if no one's connected to the game. But if you let the game keep running while no one's on it, then you're going to continue to accumulate resources in the background because all of your factories and machinery are still running. For me, I'd rather it go at our own pace, so I'll leave this as pause when no one's connected. So last but not least, we can go ahead and create a new game. And just to test it out, we'll go ahead and enter grass fields, create a new session called demo. And we also have another option here under join, so that once we create the session, we can automatically join. We'll leave that off for now. We'll just go ahead and hit create game. So it should just take a quick second as our server spins up the new world. Once the server's done, it looks like it just drops us back on the create game screen. We can see over on the left side here that it says that there is now a game ongoing. And if we want to join, we'll go ahead and click this status tab and we can see some information. So we have no milestones yet. We're on tier 2. Game hasn't really started yet. So we'll just go ahead and hit join down in the lower right corner. And here we are. We are now in our new game, on our new world, and ready to start building. Last but not least, before I wrap up this video, one more thing I wanted to call out. So what we've accomplished in this video is just building a Satisfactory dedicated server on a Linux machine. In order for us to play, since we're on the same local network, all we have to do is point our game to that server and go ahead and connect. If you need friends or family to connect from other locations who aren't sitting next to you and playing on the same local network, you will have to configure your internet router or firewall to forward certain ports towards your game server. This will allow people to connect from outside of your local network. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that isn't something that I'm going to cover here, since there are a bunch of different tutorials and guides already on the internet for how to do that. But once that's all done, you should be able to go ahead and play and have a set up static dedicated server for everyone to enjoy. So with that, I hope that this video was helpful in getting you started in building a Satisfactory dedicated server. I wish you the best of luck in exploring the world and creating some new factories. So I hope this video was helpful, and thank you so much for watching.